how do I mentally get over the pay cut if I start something else at a lower wage?
Yeah, this is a big one. One that I've thought about many times and one that I get asked all the time, especially when someone's farther along in their career, because obviously there's a bigger salary. And, in Google, when I talk to Googlers and I work with them, they often tell me, we've got these beautiful golden handcuffs to our job. Like we're totally tied to this work. I mean, all the benefits, all the bonuses, everything. It's just so good. How do I leave that and all that? And so one of the things I'll share that when it comes to how do I mentally get over that, the way you will mentally get over that, it's not so much that you have to get over it. It's that when you start to live a life that is more aligned with your values, passion, and purpose, that has value in and of itself. And it's really hard to it's one of those things like when my brother-in-law tells me, Roger, like I can tell you what it's like to have a daughter or two kids, but it won't be until you have one that you'll really get it. And I just have to trust him that he's right about this, that he can explain some things at a level. This is one of those things. This is one of those things that I can explain it for like days, but at the end of the day, like until you experience it, you won't really know exactly what it is. And what ends up happening, and this is like the rational way of explaining it, like the mathematical way, maybe, if you will, is that if right now a lot of the security, the validation, the worthiness that you get from your salary comes purely or mostly from your salary, whatever chunk that is of the pie, like, and all of that. Obviously, if that gets cut, the fear is like, oh my God, how do I get over that? Like, what happens to the gap? And right now we think of our gap in a very rational way. Like, well, the gap pays for stuff. The gap pays for like my really nice car and my vacations and this and that or whatever it might be. That's the quick, easy way of thinking about it. But what ends up happening is that when you go and start pursuing something that is aligned with your values, passion, and purpose, of course, this is after you quit something that you have thought very carefully about, then you end up actually filling that gap. And I would argue your pie just grew. And you'll only know this when you do this, but your pie grows because more of it is taken up by just the pure fulfillment you get from doing something that is aligned with your values. All of a sudden, like when I quit my day job the first time and I started going more into teaching math, I wasn't making a lot of money at first because I didn't get my teaching jobs until much later. I was doing mostly one-on-one tutoring with math. So I just got as many sessions as I could in. But back then I charged like $35 an hour. And eventually I got up to the point where I was charging $250 an hour for tutoring math, but 35 was a far like distance away from like that $250 an hour. And when I was doing it at 35, I was the happiest guy like ever, but a lot of things changed. All of a sudden, like I found myself not so interested in going to the dinners that I used to go to. It wasn't that I had to think to myself, I must sacrifice dinner to do what I love. No, it's just that my mind was like tuned into the things that I love. And I was getting the fulfillment from that. I felt great. Oh my God. At the end of the day, I didn't need a happy hour. I was too like full of fulfillment. Like I was already drunk on fulfillment that I didn't need to go do that stuff, or it's not need. I shouldn't say need, because it's not like we only do that because we need to drink or something, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't like feel like the desire to do that anymore. And I only discovered that once I made the change. One of the things that I didn't write about this too much in the book, but I do share this a lot in talks. From 2008, June 2008 through about mid 2011, or maybe all of 2009, all of 2010. Those are two of the poorest years in my life from a financial perspective. I was in a crap ton of debt and I made almost no money. So I lived in a very, very, very simple way. And those were also two of the happiest years of my life. I mean, I'm getting other happy years now too, but those were like, wow, like I'm often blown away. Like, man, those are really awesome years. Like you would think you'd remember your poorest years of your life as like bad years. You would say, yeah, times were tough. I was always under stress because of money. Yes, I would have been under stress from money if I wasn't fulfilled by teaching math. But I was too fulfilled from teaching math and doing things that I love that it was kind of hard to allow stress to take over of not having money. I found ways to make those expenses that I had to make. I got creative. I got resourceful because I was doing something I loved and I just wanted to protect the thing that I loved. And perhaps that's kind of like having like a kid that when you're just head over heels in love with this new person, you're just going to do whatever it takes. It doesn't matter how much you have to sacrifice because you're getting it back in fulfillment. So you're like, I don't have to do that thing that I normally do that I love. and all of that. That's one of the things my brother-in-law tries to tell me, because I tell him, I'm like, dude, but like, I love going to the coffee shop. I love doing my own thing, having my own time. And he's like, don't worry. I can't explain this part. This is the part I can't explain, but trust me, you will not even miss any of that. It won't be a matter of sacrificing. It'll be a matter of just getting new fulfillment in your life. And I think that's the same thing goes with when it comes to your salary, is that, you know, that gap will be filled more than the gap itself. And you'll know it once you're doing something that's aligned with your values, passion, and purpose. When you do something like that, it's hard to explain how much pleasure and fulfillment I derived from teaching math those years. And knowing that I was pursuing something that I loved and working towards it, because I also went back to school. I worked on 2 graduate degrees at that point in time, a master's in psychology and an MBA. I was working at a university as well. I was doing all these different things, but they paid very little. Some didn't. Of course, school didn't pay; they charged. But the other things paid very little, and yet, you know, life was really simple. I was married back then. That was the first time I was married, and my wife and I, like, you know, really simple things like brought us a lot of happiness. Like when people were like, "Oh, guys, how do you guys like unwind, rest, and relax?" Well, you know what? After a very long day, because our days, she was actually going through a reinvention as well. And our days started like at 6 a.m. and didn't end until about 10 p.m. between all of our jobs, all the little things we did, the tutoring, this, that. She tutored in science, I tutored in math. And she did other things as well. And then when we come in at 10 o'clock, at 10 p.m., that was dinner time. That was like, okay, time to eat a little bit of dinner. So we just make a little bit of food. We sit down. I still remember this perfectly, at the coffee table, and we watch episodes of Friends, like 1 or 2 episodes, and then go to bed. What a great day. Like, that was an awesome ending to the day. It was just so simple and all that. Didn't cost anything to watch an episode of Friends. Didn't cost anything to, you know, make a normal meal, like, or, you know, whatever that cost. But that was it. That was like, life was great. Like, it was super happy going to the park, playing soccer with my friends, like, on the team I played on, you know, that was 35 or $50 or whatever they charge you for the season, you know, as your membership dues. That was it. Like, I had the greatest life. And it was, those are 2 of my poorest years. And so really hard to explain this one, because it's one of those things you do have to experience, but maybe comparing it to kids is probably the best way to do it, because I think that that's the closest that I've linked what my brother-in-law tries to explain to me, when it comes to my nieces.